Welcome from the Fairy Oracle. My name is Susie. And I am going to give a brief message today and then pull two cards because I received some very strong messages over the holiday weekend. And I wanted you to be part of that because you are part of this collective experience. So, the messages that I received came like this. My child, do not abandon your experiences right now. Do not abandon where you are in this present moment, because this is part of your mission here. While it may feel uncomfortable, while you may gravitate from one side to the other, where you are right here is where you're supposed to be. Because you see, the mission cannot be completed if you leave it. If you leave the mission, if you leave the reason why you have been planted here as a tiny seed, it will erase everything and you will have to start over. So it is imperative that you hear me right now. Now, with this said, if you are in a harmful situation, one that you cannot navigate, and you have no help navigating, then you must abandon it. Because we as a collective do not tolerate bodily harm, emotional harm, or psychological harm, abuse. So if you are in that and you do not feel strong enough to stand in your own personal power in that, so that the situation can flip, you need to leave it. But for those of you that simply feel like you cannot go on anymore, you don't know where you fit in, the message is for you, my children, to stay the course. Do not abandon the mission. Do not jump off the boat. Because the time is coming in 2026 where you will see the reason why. Now, why did I get this 2026? It came into my psyche while I was out in nature. And if you take 2026 and you add it up, the number is 10, the number of completion. So the number of completion is a collective. And while we are on this process of great reset, which is still in flux, it is imperative that you remember who you are, you remember why you're here, and you remember what your mission is. Because oftentimes, all of the other stuff that's happening is to get you to that point of clarity. So if you abandon it, you're only going to jump into something else that doesn't have any clarity. So staying the course, living on this dense planet and rising above to the higher realms will bring you to that plane where you will know. In simple terms. Well, people say, well, how do I do this? I can't stand my job. Well, you and 98% of the rest of the world. That doesn't mean that your job is your mission. Your job is the 3D. Your mission is the 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D. That's your mission. And as those dimensions come down in, when you take the time to listen and process, it almost makes all of us feel that what we are doing to survive, we have to make money, isn't a purpose, but it is. Because while you are in those positions, experiencing all else, you will see the shift. And people will come in and people will leave. By natural osmosis, by the law of allowance, by the law of non-interference. And so let's pull two cards, one from Work Your Light deck and one from Light Fragments Oracle cards, which are mine, and see what they have to say. Starseed. You are a starseed. And if you are listening to this right now, you are a starseed. And this is why you've had trouble navigating this dense energy on this planet. It could be something so simple as the way somebody looks at you. Now, there are people that can pass that off and not think anything of it. And there are people that internalize that and it cuts to the core because you were used to not even having to see that. You were used to not having to hear words. Everything that you received was telepathic. So what lights you up here? What inspires you, brightens your face, makes you feel higher, lighter, like air? What is it? These are the questions that you should be asking yourselves. So you are a starseed. If you are listening to this message, this is for you. Now, I could go into all kinds of descriptions about starseeds. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm not going to interfere in your journey. But if you see this card and you hear this message and it gives you an overwhelming feeling right in here, down here, up to here, up to here, then the answer is yes, you are. Let's see what the next card has to say. Indigo Child. Now, I have gotten this card before in readings, but because of the nature of the messages that I received this weekend, this indigo card takes on a new and more fascinating meaning linked with this, because indigos are starseeds. And indigos came to this planet to facilitate change. And I remember in the last reading that I did, or one of the readings, if you want, you could go looking in my on my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share, and click the notification bell so you can see future uploads, by the way. Because the messages are very clear that I'm receiving. But if you feel the necessity to change who you are, your body, change your, I call it the skin. If you feel the necessity to change your eating habits, to change how you throw away your trash, to connect with nature, to get involved with injustices that shouldn't be, to level the playing field, this card is for you. Now, as far as time frames, there are groups of starseeds that came to this planet. I am not going to get hung up on dates with that, because there is DNA. And the DNA goes back billions of years. Now, it is true that indigos came here in a group. So with that said, yeah, it probably did happen in a certain time period. But the indigo DNA has traveled through genealogy lines. And some came sooner, some came a little later, and some are still coming. Because you see, it's like an army. It's like an army. The more army people that are needed, the more are sent. But on the spiritual realm, it didn't happen like that. It kind of happened by a choice. So you are not here by chance. I'll say that again. You are not here by chance. You were asked to come, and you said yes. And you made that choice. Some of you chose your parents. You can tell your parents that and they're not going to believe you. You can tell your friends this and they're not going to understand what you're talking about. But you know what I'm talking about. You were also prayed for by parents. And you said yes. You were prayed for by your siblings. And you said yes. Because they had a knowledge that you needed to be here. And then there are the other starseeds who by spiritual osmosis heard the call and came. And ended up where they ended up. They didn't need to know all the particulars. Some of you did. And some of you made that choice. So when you look at that, you can say to yourself, then there's possibilities. There are definite possibilities here. It leaves the imagination open to so much possibility. because you don't have to walk around floundering anymore. But there are some questions that you do need to ask. Okay? You do need to ask, why am I here? Where did I come from? What is my mission? And who do I need to connect with for the greater good? And when you do that, when you allow it all to happen without stressing about it, the signs will appear. And you will get your answers. You will find yourself being enthralled with information. You may get information without having to read anything. You may have gotten information many, many, many years ago, but society pushed you to be where you are almost against your will. Because dense energy, people think it's stagnant. It is not stagnant. It's just dense. Think of a mudslide. Mud is dense. And when a mudslide happens down a mountain, it picks up more mud and picks up more mud, and then it can destroy houses at the base. Cover them, push them over the edge. That is what dense energy does. It pushes. And you might be thinking, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there. And society, or maybe your parents are saying, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Of course, they want your best interest in heart most of the time. But they don't know. You know. You always knew. And that's where you are right now. So, my friends, I am going to leave you with these thoughts today. And I'm going to ask you to ask yourselves those questions. Because you are a starseed. And you could be an indigo, a crystal. You could be an indigo. But here's another piece of information that I bet you haven't heard. Because information stops if somebody is a messenger and they pass away. They need to be able to give those messages to other people. But here's another piece of information that I bet you didn't know. More starseeds are coming here. They are incarnated right now. They've made the choice to come. You didn't choose that for them. But there is a new wave coming. And in 2026, you're going to see it. That new wave is coming with a force. Because the dense energies are doing everything they can to take control. We can't let them. We need to raise our vibrations. We need to be happy. We need to say no when we mean no and yes when we mean yes. And we need to forge that path for them. It's up to us to forge that path. And when they come down, they'll find us. Okay? So, mwah. I love you all. Have a beautiful week. I will get to the paint scrying, but this weekend did not allow that. So, until we see each other again, here and there, Until next time, be blessed and be well, and I love you all.